We have one genuine revolutionary threat. It is a fascistic one. And, you know, if you support fascistic revolutionary impulses, one of the things you do that I think we could find in every one of these situations where fascists have taken over, that one of their techniques is to claim that everyone else is a fascist. I give you Tucker Carlson and Greenwald from last night's Tucker Carlson program.
We think he was right. He just posted a Twitter thread that's worth reading on the subject. He's an independent journalist, writing on Substack very often. He joins us tonight. Glenn, thanks so much for coming on. I think we've reached the point where even people who didn't take this seriously, like me, are genuinely concerned.
As you should be. You know, it's amazingly ironic. I became a journalist in 2005 in response to the civil liberties abuses justified in the name of the war.
Now pause it for 1 second. The chyron says Biden cracks down on his opponents just 2 months from midterms. Now, I guess presumably this is, are they talking about the DOJ investigating the stolen documents that Donald Trump refused to give back after months and months of begging that he refused to give back and then pretended to give back as certified by his lawyers?
Like, they literally were trying so hard for this not to happen. They were in negotiations with his lawyers for months in the lead up to this so that they didn't have to raid Mar-a-Lago. And they had to because he wouldn't freaking give them back.
Yeah, Bill Barr said they were being jerked around for that long.
Are they complaining about the fact that the Manhattan district attorney brought charges against Steve Bannon for defrauding people on his fake wall thing, which incidentally he got charged with and convicted of? Did he actually get convicted of by the feds? And Donald Trump pardoned him. Or are they talking about the investigations from the New York State Attorney General's office that Trump Inc. lied on their valuations of their properties? They said one thing to shareholders and one thing to the insurance companies.
There's also the 40 subpoenas that the DOJ sent to Trump allies that I think, in regards to January 6th, that I think Glenn might also be chafing at as well.
Now, these courts, you'd have to argue that all the courts that sent people to jail, and there's been, I don't know, a couple of dozen, like a dozen, at least a dozen now, who have gone to jail for their assault on the Capitol. You'd have to also argue that not just Joe Biden is cracking down, but all these courts are also involved. Let's hear the evidence that is the disintegration of our civil liberties that they claim that they're talking about.
As you should be. You know, it's amazingly ironic. I became a journalist in 2005 in response to the civil liberties abuses justified in the name of the war on terror, where at least there was an actual attack on the United States on 9/11. I thought the threat was exaggerated in order to escalate these civil liberties abuses, but at least there was a real attack. What is the most overlooked part of the Biden administration is that before January 6th, there was an attempt to import that war on terror, that first war on terror, onto domestic soil. Adam Schiff, one of the most authoritarian members of Congress, in addition to being one of the most pathological liars, had legislation pending that would do nothing but take that first war on terror and make it domestic. And you can look at a Wall Street Journal article on November 15th, 2 months before January 6th, right when Biden was declared the winner, where they said that a top priority of the Biden administration is to reintroduce the war on terror, but this time on domestic soil. So they justify it now in the wake of 1/6, even though before 1/6, this was what they were intending to do as a way of criminalizing their opposition and solidifying authoritarian powers on American soil.
Pause it. So in other words, there was a sense that there was an attempt, and let's be clear, Joe Biden was not president at that time. The Democrats didn't even control the Senate. on November 15th.
It was like 12 days after.
Right. And Joe Biden was not president on January 6th, just to be clear. So there was a sense amongst people in the government that something is awry here, something is amiss. And
Maybe being openly plotted.
and the former president, or at that point he was the sitting president, and we now know was at that very time saying, why would I leave? Why would I leave?
And he was saying this not like in private, he was saying this on Twitter.
Yeah.
Six, even though before 1/6, this was what they were intending to do as a way of criminalizing their opposition and solidifying authoritarian powers on American soil.
Do you feel like you're going crazy as, the opposition party is being gutted by the DOJ, that nobody is saying anything about this? How can this happen and no one notices?
One of the most bizarre things is that skepticism towards the U.S. security state, the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, were long-standing principles of left-wing politics in the United States.
Yeah.
It was a staple of how the American left understood it. If you look at polling data or just the political framework now, where you see reverence for and belief in and applause for the CIA, the DOJ, the FBI, and the NSA is not on the American right, but on the American left. And it's the American right that has become skeptical of it precisely because it's being ushered in to punish criminal dissent. And that's why they called January 6th an insurrection, even while Biden mocks people and says, oh, you can't overthrow the U.S. government with your weapons. You need an F-15. Yet they turn around and say 900 people on January 6th is an insurrection. That's what they need to do to criminalize dissent on our soil.
Right. And you called that early. There's a reason they're using that word. And to the rest of us, it was just annoying. But you saw immediately this was a legal precedent they were trying to set in order to do what they're doing right now. I appreciate, Glenn Greenwald, your persistence and your presence on this topic. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Tucker.
Yes, you're really helping out.
Good talking
Tucker.
to you, my friend. Love you.
I mean, the disingenuousness here is amazing. And it may be the case that, I guess, Democrats' perspective of the CIA and FBI, voters has somewhat changed.
Oh,
over the
weird.
years.
The left feels differently about the FBI when they're going after people who are trying to commit coups versus like people that are anti-war or for civil rights. That's what a shock.
It is really shocking. And to the extent that the DOJ has been, I don't know that people on the left have always been skeptical of the DOJ, but here's the point. The skepticism has been of policies pursued by these agencies. Like the idea that we would have a government without a Department of Justice, for instance, is in no way a left or right issue. It is about the structure of the government. Do we need a Department of Justice? How are they operating at any given time?
That might be a libertarian argument that someone would make.
Well, I think that, yes, if you were making an argument that government entities shouldn't exist, period, like the IRS, like the Department of Justice, like the State Department, if you're talking about these entities should not exist, you are just sowing a distrust of not this government or that government, of the concept of government.
Yep.
And if Glenn wanted to be consistent, perhaps that could be a through line with his initial perspective on the civil liberties stripped from regular people after 9/11 and during the war on terror, as opposed to like the investigations into political leaders with massive amounts of power who were trying to overturn an election.
Here's Sean Hannity doing the exact same thing. This is all made up, according to them. Merrick Garland is such a radical lefty.
Che Garland over there.
Yeah, exactly. Here he is. Now, incidentally, we should also say There is another investigation that has been going on, the longest running government investigation that has been going on for, I don't know, 4 years now, is it? I don't even remember. What's the guy's name?
Durham.
Yeah. The Durham investigation continues to this day.
And recently, Trump at one of his rallies, he was like, "Durham, come on, like,
Come on, give me something.
Release your things." Like,
where are the stories of the Biden administration inhibiting the Durham investigation? Where are the stories from Glenn Greenwald about how long the Durham investigation is going on? Where are the complaints of the Durham investigation? Where is it on
this list?
This list that Sean Hannity? It's nowhere. For 4 years, a guy with unlimited constraints has been investigating supposed wrongdoing by the investigators of Donald Trump. And he has found nothing. Zero. Nothing. 4 years. Maybe it's more than 4 years now. Was it in 2017? Maybe it's been 5 years. But here is Sean Hannity. If you want to talk about, really a huge mistake by an authoritarian government to allow this special prosecutor to be investigating all the investigators just freely. It's very weird behavior by this authoritarian government. But let's watch Sean Hannity doing the same thing that Glenn Greenwald and Tucker Carlson were doing, just in his, less nuanced and quizzical way.
Witch hunt, the Emoluments Clause investigation from the House Oversight Committee, a House Ways and Means investigation into Trump's taxes, another House investigation into Trump's hotel lease, another House investigation.
Pause it for 1 second. Just go back, because we just passed the Florida DA investigation. Because we all know that the Democrats who are in charge of the federal government have an in with all the Republicans who control the state government.
How about Georgia? How about the Georgia investigation?
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh.
Yes, he has that on there.
Fulton
the
County,
DA,
yeah.
The Georgia. Yeah, look at
okay.
it's good. I mean, it's just so funny. Yes, of course.
And this is proof of Biden's authoritarianism as opposed to Trump's corruption. Here's the laundry list of things that the Republicans did that are probably illegal and investigations that they're under. But it's really proof that Biden's out of control.
All right, let it run.
Witch hunt, the Emoluments Clause investigation from the House Oversight Committee, a House Ways and Means investigation into Trump's taxes,
Fulton
another
County
House
DA.
investigation into Trump's
Michigan
hotel lease,
Voting Rights Act.
another House investigation into foreign gift disclosures, a D.C. probe into Trump's inauguration fundraising, another similar investigation from the Southern District of New York and the Eastern District of New York, and from New Jersey's Attorney General. One impeachment investigation into a regular phone call with
Manhattan
Ukraine,
DA,
a second
Westchester
impeachment
DA.
investigation into January 6th, yet...
I mean, thanks for putting it all in one place, but you might want to slow down that crawl so that we can actually read all of them.
It was like when they put up that graphic of crazy radical socialism by Ilhan Omar and AOC, Green New Deal, healthcare for everybody. I don't think this is proving the point that you think that you're trying to make. And Greenwald's whole and their whole argument here about leftist hypocrisy, I would say this is more applicable to Greenwald, but it's all predicated on the notion that the left is incapable of holding two thoughts in their mind at the same time, which is that the national security state and the CIA and the FBI have been largely anti-left for a majority of their time in existence, and that they should be regulated and that essentially should be shrunk. And at the same time, that there should be some sort of federal body that holds powerful Republicans and powerful people in general, people who hold public office, accountable when they break the law. He really thinks that we're that dumb, or he's trying to make the audience believe that we're that dumb. And it's so easily debunked as soon as you just make that easy argument. You can hold both of those thoughts and they're not contradictory at all. But that is the straw man that he relies on in order to make his case, and people just eat it up because they want to view the left as hypocritical.
It's on Fox.
That's it. Yeah, I know, but
that's it. I mean,
but it's also in Substacks by Matt Taibbi. It's also in Substacks by Greenwald. Like, this is the case that's being made, and people are eating it up because they want to view the left as hypocritical, and like there is a fertile ground for that kind of perspective. But in reality, under like the easiest level of and most elementary level of analysis, you would be able to debunk that. It's not hard.
I mean, I am of the contention that, look, they are largely still speaking to a Fox or a Fox adjacent audience at this point.
Increasingly.
It's their cover letter for their Fox applications, like for their Fox appearances, right? Yeah. I have this Substack post where I lay out what I'm going to bring to the table, which is that this is the segment about how the left is hypocritical, and because I once spoke to certain audiences in that space, this is the credibility that I'm going to provide for you. It really is gross. So
yeah, I mean, I would just say, like, look, like, especially the libertarians that say we don't need a State Department or IRS, we actually do. Even after the revolution, we're going to need to be able to, like, sort of have a state agency that is in charge of taxation and also diplomacy, those things too. The CIA is one I'm fairly abolitionist about, although you probably will need something for military intelligence and that sort of stuff. But the FBI, I am fully, I think it's important to emphasize how rotten that institution is, particularly like lately in our recent history of just spying on Muslims on just a wide scale. Something Tucker Carlson has not emphasized on his show.
Not at all. And I'm also quite convinced that there's a deep corruption in the New York FBI office that we saw come out. I mean, I think it is an institution that is largely very problematic. Yeah, I don't know that you don't need a Federal Bureau of Investigation, but you don't need this one.
I agree, and I
tear it down, rebuild it.
You look at like what other countries do with regards to the right wing that attacks their elections, like Inez in Bolivia, and you throw them in jail. You're going to need some sort of state institution that's in charge of that. I don't know if it should be the FBI, but it should be something.
I think there's also a problem with the Secret Service at the moment too.
Oh yeah,
frankly.
Well, yeah.
They're now investigating what's his face who
John Ornato.
Ornato, for his attempts to discredit Cassidy's testimony, which failed miserably, and now apparently are going to sort of come back on him.
You sanctimonious authoritarian supporting the investigation of your political opponents. The fascists have finally taken over the left. Congratulations, Sam.